And with that, we are ready for our next panel. So collaboration is a very recurring theme here for today. And what we're going to talk about next is just what the future of creating new things on chain looks like, whether it's music or artwork or anything else in between. There's a lot of room here, and there's a lot of tooling as well as context that we can kind of bring in from how we use tools existing in the existing Web2 world. And to kind of talk about all these things, I want to welcome karma.wav and Olive Allen, and moderating this chat will be Cooper Turley. So I'll welcome all of them here on stage, and I'll let them turn their videos on and say hi.
Thank you, Karthik. It's good to be here, man. How you feeling today?
It's great to have all of you here. So, all right, I'll let you take over, and I'll get out of the way.
Awesome. Hey guys, what's up? My name's Cooper, and I'm joined by an awesome panel here today. We got some amazing creators on board, and so I want to spend this session really helping you understand what does a creator go through when they're tokenizing work on chain. We have visual artists here, we have musicians, we have curators on the panel, and so in this discussion, I want to really talk about the creator economy and specifically the tools that allow people to tokenize their creative work. So we'll start out with a quick round of intros. Karma, I'll kick it over to you first, and let's go ahead and go around the horn and tell everyone what you're working on.
Sure, how's it going all? I'm Karma, I'm a musician, music producer, and world builder. I'm currently exploring different experiments within Web3. So that being Songcamp, that being Wave World, which is a social garden, and really exploring how the ownership economy is going to impact creators and how value flow is going to flow throughout that. So excited to be here and get this panel started.
Good to have you here. Kate, how are we feeling today?
Hey, I'm feeling good. What's up, everyone? My name is Kate. I make music as Dot. I'm pretty new to the Web3 space. Currently just working on some drops with catalog and sound, but really excited to see what other tools begin to emerge for music, particularly around reaching new audiences. So, yeah.
Love that. And last but certainly not least, Olive, how are we feeling this morning?
Hi, I'm great. So I've been an artist and creator in Web3 since like 2018, since the NFTs emerged. I don't know, I've been through a lot throughout the years, and currently I'm working on my solo show that opens in New York on April 30th. Yeah, exciting.
Nice. Why don't you tell us more about that? I feel like this is a really good place to start, where you can kind of help people understand what does the life of a creator in Web3 look like, and how are you going to be able to bring that to the masses?
I guess a lot of the creator is the same. I mean, throughout time. So you just, like creating work, hoping, it makes sense, every single day. That's what it is. I mean, Web3 difference is that time goes much faster, right? There are a lot more going on. There are a lot more noise, which is good and bad at the same time. Yeah, I mean, as I'm preparing for the show, I'm taking a bit of time off to focus. I don't check social media as much. Yeah, Web3 can be very, very distracting because there's so many people from all over the world versus traditional art world when you're just like in your scene, in your city, like New York, LA, whatever, right? And that's about it. But this is like a global economy. It's really economy at scale, which is fascinating and challenging at the same time.
Yeah, so I want to start there because I feel like you being around since 2018, you've really seen the whole wave of on-chain creation platforms. So things like Foundation, Zora, Super, OpenSea, I could name 5 or 6 other ones probably. I would love for you to just give a quick overview of when you're thinking about tokenizing your creative work, what does that process look like for you? And how has that changed from when you first started to maybe some of the options you have on the table today?
Well, I've been a founder myself. I was building an early marketplace in early 2018 with a mixed degree of success. So I understand the whole process. I minted my first drop in early 2019 on OpenSea, and it's been a very challenging process. Like it has changed a lot since. With the emergence of new platforms that made it easy, that made it work for creators, and etc. I feel like now it's so like, I don't know, you don't even need to explain how to mint your work. It's so easy. Like I see a lot of my friends be like, not even asking before, they'd be like, oh my God, how are you even doing that? It's so complicated, it's so challenging. Like, how do I install MetaMask? How do I go on OpenSea? But that process simplified so much. And it's a delight to see. I mean, there are tons of platforms. There's a new platform like emerging every single day, I feel like. But honestly, as a creator, having so much choices, I resort to having my own contract and minting my own work because I don't know. I don't think platforms can do as much for me at this point than before. I feel like in the early days, there were four like main platforms: Makerspace, Nifty Gateway, what else? Super Rare, and maybe OpenSea, but nobody was like using it much for minting. And yeah, everybody knew what's going on, what drop is happening, and so where to get stuff. But now, if yeah, it's just like if you don't see it on Twitter, like, you don't know what's happening. If you miss an email, there's so many platforms, there's so many creators. That what became a
Yeah.
challenge. Even though all of the platforms claim to be curated at some point, to some degree. Right, like it's like you always need to be plugged in 24/7, like not to miss your favorite artist, your favorite musician, or the drop that you want to get. So, and I know a lot of people are on it 24/7, and that's a full-time job for sure. I mean, as you probably know yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would say you highlighted something really important there, which is custom smart contracts. So I want to come back to that in a second because I think that's a really fascinating conversation topic. Kate, first, maybe turning this over to you. As a musician who's been tokenizing their creative work, can you talk about the process with uploading to Catalog and Sound and maybe what that experience looks like?
Yeah, I have been kind of shocked actually by how simple it's been. Coming from 10 years of experience in like Web2 music industry and dealing with heaps and heaps of paperwork, not getting paid, having to hire an attorney for, some of the most simple of tasks to then be able to upload music and write a quick description, get it out there, and then, immediately receive value if someone chooses to collect that. It's just a whole different world. So that's been really, really fascinating to experience. Yeah, it's been surprisingly easy. I'm keen to see what sort of what like further tools emerge for creators to be able to not only collaborate with fellow artists, but also build in structure for artists to make sure that their teams are also getting paid. One of the benefits that I see of this greater efficiency is having artists who are maybe at a earlier stage in their career be able to hire managers or hire agents, hire people to assist them at an earlier point. So finding ways for them to also be able to collaborate with their teams, I think, is going to be important in the future.
Yeah, I'll give a quick shout out here to a project called 0x Splits. I know that this was born out of an ETH Global hackathon, but they're doing really great work right now on routing on-chain payments. Would highly check it out for those who haven't heard of it. And I guess kicking this over to you, Karma, I think you have a really good lens on this because a lot of the work you do is with collaborators. It's putting people in a room together, finding experiments to bring this together. What does that experience look like for you, and what are some of the platforms that you guys are looking to when you're choosing to mint your creative work?
Yeah, of course. So I would say, yeah, the marketplaces like Catalog, like Sound, that are more curated. There's always like something like Manifold if you want to go through your own contract. As far as collective creation, which we do a lot in Song Camp, and actually right now I'm part of Camp 3, which is called Camp Chaos, which is an experiment where 80 people, 50 musicians, and the rest are operators, economics, is basically going to release as one headless artist. And we're actually really using 0x splits. That was one of the biggest things we needed in our camps to orchestrate this whole thing. Some of the 0x splits devs are in it. So I would say for collective creation, I think the splits and Selection did a beautiful drop on Sound have really changed the game. It was something that was so needed for musicians. And as Kate said, right, like the traditional way royalties work, it can be so backlogged, it can be hard, there's a lot of administration. So I think using smart contracts to really be able to track all of this and have it be transparent is such a game changer. And on the other side of things, it's like, I've made music since I was 3, and to have people value like a WAV file, right? And pay for that, where I've only ever made money from other like avenues of music, is really a shift. And I noticed it even myself as a musician and collector, because for me, it's blurring the lines, right? I think the lines between what is a musician, what is a collector, what is a fan is kind of getting blurred. And we're gonna allow for this new bottom up creator economy to emerge. So I would say that's where I'm currently at.
Love that. Yeah, I would definitely give a big cosign for Songcamp and Chaos. It's a fantastic community of producers. And for those of you who aren't aware, there's a weekly call every Monday at 1 PST. I'd highly recommend checking it out. Olive, I know that Karma just mentioned Manifold, which I think most people in the creator economy recognize as sort of a leading toolkit if you want to be more independent with your sovereignty around minting. I know you mentioned you have your own custom smart contract now. Can you talk about what that process looked like for you? Maybe first
Yeah,
and foremost, why
Manifold
you
did
did
it.
that, and then where?
Manifold made it like back in the day when they didn't have a platform. I was a part of Christie's auction back in July. Oh my God, it's almost a year ago. Jesus, time flies. And they were making smart contracts for everybody who was dropping their artworks, and so it stayed. Yeah, and it turned out to be the most convenient way for me in terms of tracking provenance, which is important. And yeah, collectors like tend to prefer it. So like they know it's my smart contract, that's the provenance, it's real, and right, especially for one-on-ones. It really does make sense. For larger drops, I don't think it does. It's something else. I'm planning of like making a game. It's like a larger project this year, like next year release. And yeah, definitely we're writing different contracts for that. But for one-on-ones, like provenance of artwork, manifold contract is great. And I think every artist should look into that. Because the platform's like, no, I was like early artist on Nifty Gateway, and like go find my work. Like it doesn't on the back end, it doesn't really show that is my work necessarily or anybody's work because it was minted from one wallet. So everybody's work is minted from one wallet, and it's virtually not distinguishable within like one wallet, right? So it's not the best provenance going forward. Like now Nifty Gateway, but tomorrow it might cease to exist. And like you wouldn't really find it like 10 years, 20 years from now. It's virtually impossible to prove that it was your artwork, in fact, minted that time. So that was a big flaw. I think they are realizing it right now. Yeah, and smart contract is where to go.
Yeah, I think it's really a testament to the times, like the fact that Nifty Gateway was able to realize that they needed to offer self-sovereignty with smart contracts. It just wasn't something that I think anyone thought about at the time, but I think it's a good, telltale sign of where we're going. Sorry, Karma, I know you wanted to add something in there.
No worries. I just wanted to add on that for creators. I think it really is important that if you are going to go with a platform, some platforms will actually create your own smart contract. So that exactly what you're mentioning, right? That your smart contract is going to exist if the platform fails, right? Because we know how crypto goes. You can see 2017 music platforms. So I think Sound is minting their own smart contracts. And I do think it will be a trend towards sovereignty on the smart contract, because that's really the game changer. The fact that it's not at the platform level, it's at the protocol level. So yeah, really important point.
Yeah, I want to stick on this point for 1 second, because I think for the hackers that are listening, this is really a fascinating design topic. When it comes to creating your own custom smart contract, when it comes to minting from your own custom smart contract, are there any issues you guys have experienced with sort of that ease of uploading relative to some of the more convenient flows that we talked about with the platforms? Or what are some of the current, maybe blockers or design areas that exist within the custom smart contract space?
I don't know if Manifold has a front end. I'm not so sure about it. I'm doing everything like through like back end, like through Etherscan. But if you think about it, it's not very convenient if you don't know what to do. So it's like not for everyone. I don't know if they have like a front facing, like user facing platform right now. I have no idea. They might.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that sentiment. I mean, I work with a lot of creators on building out their Web3 products. And I think that the biggest issue I see right now with custom smart contracts is conceptually, it makes a ton of sense. I think people want to have self-sovereignty and be minting tokens from their own source. But I think the tooling to be able to do it easily as a non-technical creator is very difficult. If you're able to navigate Etherscan, if you're able to go into Terminal, I think that it's fantastic. But one thing that I would really call out to the developers listening to this is that the tools around creating custom smart contracts and being able to easily mint from those contracts, I think that there's a lot of design area there. That's anything from expanding the scope beyond one-of-ones to doing additions and generative art to just very simple tools where I can go in and just plug and play. I don't have to be an Etherscan or a Terminal to deploy this. So, I guess, Kate, maybe turning this over to you as a question. As someone who's kind of newer to the Web3 space, what is the conversation around sovereignty looked like for you? Has it been important? Is it something that you've learned about over time? Or when did this really come into your orbit as being, a discussion topic to even have in mind?
Yeah, it's definitely important. It's something that I know I've been talking with a lot of other artists about, particularly around like how much power are we giving to certain platforms versus having, full control over how we want to mint and then release our work. So I don't really have like I guess, a clear answer or definitive thoughts on this yet, but I think it is something that is important to consider. And as amazing as some of the tools are and some of the platforms are that currently exist, I think it's going to be more and more important also for people to just have full autonomy or full control over their own contracts, not be reliant on other platforms to mint their work or distribute their work, and figure out ways of doing that and like going forward. So yeah.
Nice. And then one topic I want to get into here, the metadata of NFTs is something that I think is a little bit more low key from the average collector. I don't think we talk about it very much, but I'm really curious to hear, maybe Olive, I'll start with this on your end. How do you think about metadata relative to your NFTs that you're creating, and where does it kind of slot into the conversation?
Right. I've been thinking a lot about it. I know there are two ways to save the metadata right now. I mean, obviously, three ways actually. It's not sure. IPFS, like the old-fashioned way, but most reliable, like Airweave. They say it's better. I don't know. It's hard for me to tell if it's better or not. But like, you have to get tokens. But in the US, you cannot buy tokens, so it's a bit of a drag, to be honest. I don't know if it's better or not, but I don't have tokens, so I have to like stick to IPFS. And third way is actually embed art on chain itself, but like the size of the file should be very, very small. But if you maintain like fine artwork, it's MP4, and it's like a large file, it's kind of borderline impossible. The gas fees will be astronomical if you do that. I know some projects, some crypto projects, PFP projects do that very successfully, but the size of the files are very, very small, and the PFPs allow that. It's like a small like avatar thing, maybe pixelated. It's a small file, so it's possible. So, but for my artwork, not really at this point. So IPFS is the way, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I guess Karma, kicking this over to you, have there been conversations around this with relation to music NFTs and sort of the differentiating metadata standards that might be used relative to crypto art?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, music, and I know people are working on this from the catalog and mint songs team, suffers from a lack of metadata standards from a curation perspective and a discovery perspective. And I mean, yeah, what all the places that were mentioned is basically where music is being uploaded. I do think that uploading MIDI on chain is a pretty interesting thing. I know Beats Foundry is doing that. I like that concept. But like was said, like if you want to upload a WAV file, it's going to be so expensive to mint on chain. So right now, primarily it's happening on IPFS. And I know glass.xyz, I minted a video on there. They're working on Arweave. So I do think for like the builders out there, in the catalog Discord, there's a music NFTs like metadata standards. And I think the work around that is going to be super important just so we have composability between platforms and between protocols. So I think that's really where the biggest bottleneck is in music as far as metadata standards.
Yeah, I think this is a great transition because we've been talking in the first part of this panel about sort of the technical layers of creation. So custom smart contracts, metadata. I think the social aspect is something that's really important and unique relative to sort of the creator economy that's being developed now. So I guess, Dot, kicking this over to you, how do you think about minting your music on platforms like Catalog or Sound versus a typical distribution system where you just put it through a distributor and it's on all platforms? Do you see any bottlenecks with that, or how do you sort of view having different platforms, host different content that are kind of existing in silos right now?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference for me right now, like putting something on Catalog, for instance, versus like Spotify, is Catalog or Sound is a very, very small, very niche community still at this point. So you're reaching a small, like fewer number of people, but very potentially like high quality, quote unquote, fans, like people who genuinely want to engage with you on all these different levels. So I think just as far as like volume of users go, like that's a very big difference. It's something that's highly curated versus like a Spotify or Apple Music. There's just this massive volume of music coming through. And while there are ways that we are sort of curating it, while, you know, there's playlisting, there's all these different options, it's so much more saturated. So I'm eager to see kind of what happens as these platforms continue to grow and expand, and get more users, not just on the collector side of things, but get more and more musicians involved or creators involved. Yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But that's been the biggest difference, is just, I think, number of people who are actively engaged. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And it really echoes sort of the quality of the average contributor right now and the people that are collecting these works. But I think, you know, one of the things that we take for granted for things like Spotify and Apple Music is you can search any song in the world and it's going to show up, you know, irregardless of the streaming service that you use, it's typically there. And so I guess, Karma, kicking this over to you from a collector standpoint, how do you think about music discovery right now in the lens of Web3? And what are some of the challenges you see around, you know, not being able to find music or being kind of too buried because it's only in one place? Do you see any areas of improvement there?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's where most of the building has to be done, as far as like curation, discovery, and social, and really taking a bottom-up approach to it, right? Like, what type of curation wasn't possible before that now is possible? I know you made a great tweet actually around gatekeepers versus curation, right? And it's a really tough problem to solve. And we see it across the sentiment of musicians being like, I want to be on catalog and sound, but I can't get on. And I think it's really important to keep in mind that there's a reason that it's being curated the way it is, right? Because if we just leave it open, there's going to be so much supply that the demand is not going to be there to keep up with it, plus a quality control issue, right? So I do think the approach, and these platforms are already going towards that route, is slowly like giving it to the artist and then the community, and then hopefully like actually just creating a new type of incentive system. And what I would like to see is curation at like a protocol layer that works across the platforms. So it kind of just takes a little bit of that curation power away from them. But like right now, to be honest, it's all happening off social, and it's mostly Twitter, right? Like, let's be honest, it's still like most of discovery and curation is happening as a result of attention harvesting algorithms, right? And it wasn't like made with bad intentions originally, but I think they have emerged to be these new information ecologies that they optimize for time spent on site, but not time well spent, right? So for me personally as a creator, like I'm a lot more into having a small amount of listeners that are like actively listening to it, engaging with it, than having this huge reach. But it's not an or thing, right? I think it's an and thing. Right now, Web 2 is acting as this reach and Web 3 is acting as this depth. The question is how do we start solving the problem of reach and bringing it into a more Web3 native way? So that's like where my head's at around things, and maybe even rewarding people who are curating. I think curators themselves, and it's like collectors are almost curators, I think that's going to be a really large emerging trend.
Yeah, and I think that's a good area just to kind of give a shout out to the sponsor of this panel. You know, Lens Protocol, I think, is a really awesome solution for this. You know, I'm hopeful that there can be a world where instead of us doing all of our distribution and social experience on Web2 platform like Twitter, there can be something that's a little bit more on-chain native like Lens. And so I guess, Olive, turning this into a question for you, how do you get in contact with your collectors today? You know, like when you have this event coming out on April 30th, is there a way for you to contact, you know, holders of your NFTs, or what are some things that you would like to see in that regards, just being able to have a more direct line of communication with them?
Honestly, yeah, that's a challenge. That's reaching out to collectors. Like that's real challenge. Like you're relying on Twitter algorithm regularly and maybe Instagram, like, okay, a bit better, but honestly, it's been a headache. I don't have a good answer. Just reaching out one by one, and I've been doing it for a very long time. Like a lot of my collectors, I don't even know. Like you know, like from like 2018, 2019, I don't know where they are. Literally, I don't even know if wallets are active. Like if they're on Twitter. Like yeah, maybe I should have been cataloging it better. Fair. Maybe, I don't know. It's interesting point. Like I'm actively thinking about it right now. It's like very hard to reach those people, and it's very hard to reach anyone in the crypto space with a lot of noise. If you guys have ideas, solutions, please do. Do share.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is it's really interesting because in Web2 we have email lists, right? And if someone buys your product or if they subscribe somewhere, you can send them an email and say, check this out. We don't really have that on chain right now. You know, again, just to give a shout out to Lens Protocol, I think that there's some promising signal in that direction. In particular, being able to query someone's on-chain activity. Did I buy something on Catalog? Did I buy something on Sound? Did I buy something on Foundation, Nifty Gateway, OpenSea, whatever it is, and starting to build more of a social graph? I'm excited for this next chapter of Web3 Social because I think it's really going to power, Web3 native artists. I think to Olive's point very early in this conversation, right now, if you're a creator in Web3, you need to be full-time on Twitter for the most part. I mean, obviously, I think it's really important to take breaks and not be on there, but I think we see time and time again that a lot of the success Web3 creators have are how tied in they are on a day-to-day on Twitter. And so I guess, Don, I'm going to turn this one over to you because you've been, really crushing in that regard recently. Did you ramp up, your social activity specifically on a platform like Twitter with relation to your activity in the music NFT community, or what did that process look like?
Yeah, I did make a conscious effort to start ramping that up, and it's definitely been, I won't say like a point of strain or stress. It's work that I'm happy to do. Like I love creating music, and so anything I can do to share that with other people in whatever form that may be is wonderful. But I think, going forward, I would really love to see ways for creators to reach collectors and also reach new audiences that really prioritizes like the medium that they're already working in versus their ability to be funny on Twitter or for me also, I work in audio mostly, and a platform like Instagram is really prioritizing images. It's visual, and so it's like the success or failure of a post about your project is not even based on the work itself. It's based on this other aspect of like, a visual representation of the music. And so that's been, I think, really challenging for musicians specifically. We don't have a lot of platforms, maybe Audius is something that prioritizes the sharing and discovery of just the audio itself. Or the Web 2 version of that could be like SoundCloud, where there was also that social aspect. But I would love to see like more and more tools that integrate like the social aspect of music sharing and community.
Yeah, let's stick on this for a second because I think a lot of the process for creating on-chain work does have to do with the social layer of it as well. I mean, I think that we see now that Twitter Spaces play such an important role in getting the distribution out there, doing these things like having private sales on a platform like Foundation. Karma, I want to kick this one over to you because I think you're most active in this space. What does it look like for you to be able to relay what you're working on to the community you've built in Web3? Can you talk a little bit about sort of the relation Twitter and Discord have and some places people should be keeping in mind to help, talk about distributing their creative work?
Yeah, 100%. So I think primarily it's happening, and it also depends on it. Like I'm a more Web3 native creator and I'm cool with that. Like I'm still doing things in Web2, but it's very much so like I love Web3. And for me, and people asking this a lot, it was very organically. I feel like I was drawn to the way things were happening because of its eclectic nature. I felt like finally in my life, I could take all my different disciplines and kind of put them into one. But it really is happening on Twitter and Discord, and like almost funneling into Discord from Twitter, the way I see it. I think Twitter Spaces were a huge game changer. And I do like that conversations are happening, right? That it's not this news feed based thing. People can hear each other's voices. But I think, and this is what the builders should be thinking about, it's the design principles and the design model and the ethics around how these networks are built. And they're incentivized to just keep you scrolling, right? They're incentivized to show more sensational content. So I think really building, and I love that idea of including audio, including the medium that we're already creating in, baked into the social layer. And I know sound like definitely touched on this, and I think it's a big reason for their success. Like I've met people because we've been on the same sound pyramid, and then we are at an event, and like now we're friends, right? So I think that social layer, and also for the builders, the reason that music didn't have its PFP moment was partially because there was nowhere to display them, right? So I think having ability to display these things and use these things and interact with them in the social layer is going to be game changer. So yeah.
Great point. Yeah, I want to shift this conversation over to the consumption side of things because I think it's really important. We talked about minting NFTs with custom smart contracts. We talked about distribution on different platforms, the social experience around marketing. But how about after you collect an NFT? Where are you showing that off? Where are you displaying it? How are you experiencing that? There's two really awesome topics here, both with crypto art and music. I guess first and foremost, Olive, with the crypto art side of things, when it comes to people displaying the work that they've collected from you, what are some of the platforms and solutions you recommend? And maybe where there's still some open problems that people can be looking into?
Right, like me as a collector myself, to be honest, I don't display my NFTs as much, honestly, and unfortunately. I just put them in different wallets and just I'll look through on OpenSea like what I have, the inventory. I'm like, okay, I'm checking on. Okay, still here. Good. I have like wallet for fine art, for whatever art, for something to flip, some like project, whatever I got, like I'm ashamed of getting that, minting that shit. So, like I don't want people to see my lens, I organize in different wallets and like yeah, I check on them sometimes, like some like attached to ledgers, some hot wallets, like okay, still here, which is like not the best way, not gonna lie. So I wish there was like a better tool, more secure tool to organize it somehow, but it is what it is right now. I don't display my lens or whatever PFPs. I have them. I hoarder them. In terms of my artwork, well, different like collectors play it very differently. I have works that I sold both print, like high quality print, attached with the animated NFT. That's the way. Collectors love that. Or there's some like high quality frames right now, like Lego frames. They have square frames, like pre-order only. Some people have that. I'm gonna have them in my show, so people can just like buy the artwork, take it with the frame, take it home. So like, don't worry about the display. Like it's yours. It's all included. I feel like that's an easy way. Yeah, I mean, some people just put it on TV. Like good old way, and like have it right there. Or people have put them on their phones, like like the display. I've seen that. Oh, and like someone else, like you can customize apps on iPhone. Some people like did that. I know that I put some of my bears, some of my artwork for that. I mean that's a fun way to have it with you like at all times. But yeah, I mean I think most of the people just like have them in their wallets and like look at the art sometimes, like like, hey, my Pokemon cards like all with me, like oh, my NFTs all with me still. Okay, nobody stole them. My apes, good, doing good. Yeah,
Nice.
right. I mean, there are tools like spatial, like whatever, you can have a metaverse exhibition, but I feel like it was a trend back like a year ago. People did like, I was like in a number of online exhibitions. Collectors would just like build a building, a museum, whatnot. A lot of people build museums, but crypto art, and they put like your artwork on their Decentraland land, and yeah.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot to be done in this regard. I'll give a quick shout out to two that come to mind for me. Gallery.so and OnCyber, I think, are both fantastic platforms to display art. But what I'm hearing from you, and I think this is a really interesting conversation topic, is that people have very different assets in their wallet. They have NFTs that they're proud to own, NFTs that they're just using to flip, NFTs that they're not proud to own. Right now, they all just exist in one spot. On OpenSea, I can go and I can hide certain assets, but it's very difficult for me to categorize those by different mindset. And so I think you bring up a really good point. And something that I see being, a trend moving forward here is going to be, let's call it vertical specific wallets. So right now, if I have a wallet, I have all of my NFTs in one spot. But specifically for someone like myself that's collecting a lot of music NFTs, it doesn't make as much sense for my music NFTs to exist directly next to my PFPs. And so I think a big area that we're going to see moving forward here is, what do a music specific wallet look like? And maybe turning this into a question to you, Kate, when you're selling your music NFTs to people, how are they experiencing those, or how do you think they're experiencing them? And when people want to listen to your music in Web3, what are some of the ways that you think we can do a better job of allowing that to happen natively on chain?
Yeah, at this point, I'm thinking about this from my perspective also as a collector. There's not really, I think, a great way to share or display in some way like our collections. Like when I think about collecting vinyl, for example, it's something that I love doing. And as a DJ too, when I get the opportunity to like spin vinyl, that's like a really fun opportunity to, share these pieces of work that I've gone out to find, to like dig from the back of whatever bin at a record store, and there's like a story behind each one. And so that social process also of like, going out somewhere, gathering with people and sharing this collection is really important to me and really special and valuable. And I would love to see sort of a Web3 version of that. I don't know at this point what that could look like, but I just know that so much of like music collecting when you are like gathering, I guess, vinyl, I keep bringing it back to that. So much of that is very social, and it's not as meaningful unless there's other people involved where you can share that with others. So I think figuring out a way to make that more of an experience for collectors is going to be important going forward.
Absolutely. I'll give a shout out to Future Tape here. I think this is a project that's working in the direction of that, but I think there is still a ton of design work, whether it's displaying it as a playlist, whether it's having it as a vinyl collection. I think one of the most exciting things about music NFTs, there will be a social layer associated with collecting. And to your point, maybe there's a day where if I want to DJ my music NFTs, I can only play it if I own the music NFT. And there's some cool edge cases that emerge there. And so I guess, Karma, I want to transition this to you because I know that Songcamp talks a lot about this. How have you guys been talking about music consumption, display, the social experience around it? And, again, just ask the question, any blockers that you're seeing right now?
Yeah, no, I think this is honestly something I think about a lot because I have all these music NFTs and like, what do I do with them? Currently, what we do is we play them on BPM Bot, which is a Discord bot we built to play catalog records. And like we recently, like the last month or so, added Zora and sound. And that was interesting because honestly, that showed me the power of just this cross-community collaboration because I was just in the sound Discord. I'm like, I want to play my sound NFTs. And then another dev is like, I'm down to help build it. So I'm like, oh, let's just put this in BPM. We went into the Wave world and we built it over a weekend. So to me, like that's the first step, right? Like at least having somewhere to play it. I mean, right now I don't play them in my car unless I play them through Discord, which is literally what I'm doing. I'm playing them through Discord, not the best. But I think also thinking about like, what is the offline version, right? Like I was on the plane, how am I listening to my music NFTs? I have Future Tape, but there's no way of like downloading them offline. And it really is about, I collect vinyl as well. And it's like, what is that displaying of the vinyl look like in a post-skeuomorphic world, right? So like, what can you create to display music and interact with music that wasn't previously conceivable? Whether that be through smart contracts or some of the stuff Lens is building. But I think that's really where, yeah, that's where my head is at. And as far as displaying them, like I have a gallery that I did it, but like I feel like there needs to be a more music native one, right? Like I would like something with like spatial audio. Like if you've ever been to GatherTown, where like you can go buy it and interact with it. As well as like IRL ones. I know at ETH Denver, they have these motion sensor like for visual art. So that to me is interesting as well, right? Like how can you include the listener as part of the creation process? Because once you attach your identity or some type of emotional connection to it, and you already get this by buying it from having skin in the game, but that layer I think is what really also would be interesting to explore, because I think that's what kicked PFPs off, right? Like having that status and having that way of like identifying with it because of the blind mint. So interested to see what people are building there.
Yeah, I'm hearing a very big need for more projects around the consumption layer of NFTs. And I guess really just to round this out, right now we've talked about minting your work. We've talked about the platforms you get it on. Olive, I want to toss this one over to you and have this be kind of our last question for the session. But when you're getting your work out there into the world and choosing to have people hear about it or discover it more, what are some of the ways that you're doing that? And what are some of the areas that you're hoping to see some better improvements in?
All right, that's my pain point. Like, how do I talk about my work? How I tell people about it? Like, I've always been like shy to self-promote myself. Maybe it's a cultural background. I don't know what that is. I don't know if I display my high-value NFTs. I don't know. I'm weird about that. It's just such a weird thing. I never had a Discord, which perhaps is a great tool, like to get organized. I'm like not very organized with those things. I'm not on Twitter every day. Sometimes like I'm not on Twitter like for 3 days. Is it like my engagement drops low? Like nobody like sees me for quite a time. Yeah, but I'm active on Instagram. I guess it's a very like Web2 way, right? Like what artists did back in the day. They use, I mean, they still do. Like it's nothing changed. They use Instagram, and most of their collectors are on the gram, literally watching stories, and they know what's going on. Like that's our world is on the Instagram. Like everyone. That's how people discover things still, even in Web3, unfortunately, like that, like Mark Zuckerberg's like own thing, which is sad. And Twitter is like bad algo. It's like, I don't know, maybe I feel like Web3 community should kind of like move into like better tools of discovery tools, better conversations. And maybe for me personally as a creator, I feel like I really need to work on like being more active, doing spaces, doing my own Discord channel, and like expand in that sense. Right, like
Yeah.
I'm actively trying to solve that. That's been my problem for quite a time. Like, how do I reach out to people? Like, who do I know? Like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, like, fuck, how do I do that?
I think it's a
It's all
combination of
about
both.
it.
You know, I feel like there's definitely a pressure right now if you are a creator in Web3 to be hyper active on socials. I don't think that that's a mindset that suits many people. And for most of the creators I know, you know, they don't want to have a Discord. They don't want to be in there every single day talking to their fans. They want to make art.
Yeah.
So I guess, you
Mental
know,
health suffers if when you're like on social like 24/7, you don't have time to do the artwork. You need to be in a process of flow, right? Like if it interrupts by the message or whatever, you kind of lose it. That's like
I think it's Web 2 as well, right? Especially in music, you see that after COVID hit and people stopped doing live gigs, the industry went towards looking at TikTok as a metric, right? And like all the labels look at TikTok. So I think it's a general thing with these algorithms being built from an incentive model where the advertiser is the customer and the creators are influencers, which to me is like, you're literally just worth your influence. Your art is nothing, right? Like if someone else has influence, we'll plug you in there. And to me, like that's the world I don't want to live in, right? I want to live in a world exactly like you're mentioning. That's incentivizing creators to have a balanced approach, right? Where they can be like, okay, I share my work, I talk to my collectors, but it's not predicated on feeling like I constantly have to like be on there, right? Because everyone feels that. I feel like the platforms want to make you feel like that because you will buy more things and spend more time on there. So I think it's really like from the ground up building with that design principle in mind.
yeah, Kate, I've seen you tweet a lot about this. Do you have any closing thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I guess just to ditto what the others have said, like I don't think our current incentivization to just be constantly active, constantly socializing or connecting with people is healthy for a lot of artists, and it deprioritizes the actual work that we're trying to do. So you know, anything that we can do to not only meaningfully connect with the people who are either collecting our work or experiencing our work or wanting to connect with us, like that is wonderful. I think like having fewer but more meaningful ways of engagement would be really beneficial. Excuse me. And then also just meaningful ways of reaching new people, again, that doesn't prioritize like your constant activity on a platform, I think would be healthier.
I love that. Well, guys, we're right at time here. And just to give the audience a quick recap of what we talked about, I think there's a huge need for easier to use custom smart contracts. It seems like a pain point that everyone was feeling here. I heard a lot around the consumption layer of NFTs. So how do I experience and display them? And then lastly, on the distribution side, how do you get your work out to a Web3 native audience and have direct communication with collectors that have bought stuff from you on chain? And so I guess cleaning it up here, let's go around and see where people can stay up with you post this conversation. Olive, I'll kick it over to you first. I know that you have a big IRL event coming up in April too. So tell us where we can stay up with you and learn more about it.
So it's April 30th, my solo show called Welcome to the Metaverse. It opens at Postmaster Gallery, New York. It's Tribeca. I'll post more info and a flyer like 2 weeks before, so people won't forget it. Like it's a month and a half. It's way advanced of a notice. So yeah, it's IRL event. Basically opening from 6 to 8. There's a bit of a party. Like everybody's welcome. I'd love to see everyone. It's gonna be fun. Like a bunch of fun artwork dedicated to the metaverse.
Love it. I can't wait for it. Karma, what about you, man? Where can people stay up with your work?
Sure. So I'm karma.wav on Twitter and all other platforms. You can find my music on Sound. I have I'll give you a little catalog release coming out. And yeah, just tap in with me on Twitter. My DMs are pretty backlogged, but like I'll get to them eventually. Like back to our conversation, I think going with the seasons of life. So right now I'm in a music creation process, but you can find me karma.wav everywhere.
Love it. Kate, what about you?
Yeah, I am Dot Music, most platforms, DOTMVSIC, putting out a bunch of new music this year and in all of the places. So you can find me in Web2 spots or on Sound and Catalog. Going to be playing a bunch of festivals this year too. So if you're at any of those, come say hi. But yeah.
Love that. And last but not least, I'm Koopa Troopa. Very thankful to have been hosting this panel. Kartik, thank you as always for giving us this space, and it was a wonderful conversation.
Cooper, thank you so much for moderating this amazing chat. And Kate, Karma, and Olive, thank you so much for being part of it and giving out so many amazing perspectives. Really appreciate this.
Thank you, guys. Good luck with the rest of the hackathon.
Thank you so much.